Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Essential Goat, Neil, Click OK, Adam, and a whole bunch of people in the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord server. So, welcome one and all.
How are you?
Good morning, 24/7.
Good afternoon.
Oh, it's good to be here in a different server. Hopefully one of the YouTube mods can dig out a link to 24/7 Flat Earth Discord, which is where we are today. Not typically. We've made a surprise visit, so if we are associated with friendly servers that we have just popped in by chance before, I will do that periodically with some of the servers that I've already sort of made a connection with. However, I do want to do a bit of call to action in terms of people who are in the audience who are using Discord that may be aware of a platform where we can spread our wings, we can serve our ends in terms of spreading the good word of Flat Earth to a wider audience. Now, I am useless when it comes to Discord. I can just about get by, but as for sort of figuring out how to socially network, I can do this, right? I can go on camera, I can talk to people and I can appeal to them in that way. It was pointed out in the pre-show that if you're a member of some Discord server that's giving you free information on games or on computer programming or how to overclock your computer or whatever it is that server's for, you may not want us there. So therefore that could be a bit of a problem. But nevertheless, I still want to put the feelers out there because, you know, I'm having exampled to me how people on the servers that I'm frequenting now and saying, oh, well, I'll drop in this server. They've been built by people who have done this already. And I can only utilize the tools at my disposal, and that is a YouTube channel and its audience. So, you know, you might know of somewhere we can go that we are better served in terms of spreading the information that we will most definitely be going through today on 24/7, starting with a bit of housekeeping, which are more relevant than ever. So we'll hopefully rattle our way through that. If you want to join in from the Discord server, feel free to answer any of the questions. Is there any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curve.
Black Swan.
I was going to say that.
Black Swan, that's perfect. Just leave it as a whisper. That's all it needs to be. Absolutely perfect. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Going once, going twice. The correct answer is you're going to need a flat Earth for that. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Should gravity be defined first?
Anybody want to define
Yeah, that
gravity?
drives me crazy.
What does? Gravity?
Yeah, because in an argument, you're giving them gravity all the time when it's not even the gravity they're talking about. Can we get it established, what gravity they're talking about? And can we have some proof of this gravity before we allow them to assert it everywhere?
So, any scientific evidence of gravity?
Negative.
What about any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? Any scientific evidence in the form of a hypothesis?
No, just phenomenon.
Okay, we're going to drop anchor there. So, over the coming year, we're going to be talking specifically about science and the scientific method. Now, in this arena, we're talking about the nature of the world that we inhabit. Therefore, we're talking specifically about natural science. Why do I say that to start us off? Well, because you can describe science as an all-encompassing description of something. So you can have the science of on the cover of a book, and it can describe things. However, when we're talking about the nature of the world that we live in, we're talking about natural science for obvious reasons. So just so it's distinguished what we're talking about, we are talking about natural science. So what is natural science? Well, it's the elucidation of cause when studying natural phenomena. So where we'll start today is with that. What is a phenomena? Well, a phenomena is something that you observe in nature and you want to know why it occurred. So it's something that you observe that's not synthetic, that is to say, not man-made, in nature, happening. They're not concrete nouns, not tree, because that's not something occurring. Something occurring could be, for example, a leaf falling from the tree. That's a phenomena, an effect that you observe in nature. Now, phenomena in hypothesis construction, which is step 2, we're detailing step 1, has a term. It's called a dependent variable. Naturally observed phenomena. Any questions?
Oh, bit cold today.
Skitzley? Did you have something you wanted to ask?
Yeah.
Go. He's just hot micing. I don't know if he was saying yeah, because he had something to ask. You want to take him off server mute, whoever? I think he might have actually wanted to ask something. Shitzley? Go ahead.
Yes.
Okie dokie then. Okay, so when we're talking about phenomena, what do you have to substantiate it actually being a phenomena? Well, you have to actually observe it. That's to say, when we say observe a natural phenomena, that doesn't mean create one in the mind's eye of people that you're talking to, or suggest that something may occur in nature. Shitzley, can you pop yourself on mute for us, please? You're hot micing. Unless you've got something you wanted to ask. Shitzley, you hear us? You're in a public server in a voice chat, Shitzley.
This is a lesson. You'll be in detention if you carry on.
No, they did. Whoever the moderator is, thank you. The unspoken heroes of things like this Discord server was all over it and knew better than I already. I second guessed that moderator. Whoever you are, you're a hero, and yeah, that's my own fault. So yeah, so it's not a phenomena unless it's an observed phenomena. That's to say, you actually have to see this thing occurring in nature to say, I wonder why that happened. Yeah? So that is, in essence, establishment of, in scientific vernacular, a dependent variable. Okay? So observing a natural phenomena occurring in nature and saying, I wonder why that happened, is the first step in the scientific method. Yep. So this gets misrepresented quite often. If you do a quick Google search of what is science, asking a question will often be the misrepresentation. Well, no. It's asking a question about what caused a phenomena you observed in nature. That's the scientific method. It forms part of your hypothesis, which is step 2. But in this instance, I just want to get it absolutely squared away and as clear as possible. If you are observing something to occur, by example earlier, a leaf falling from a tree, you can definitely observe that in nature to occur and ask yourself, why did that happen? So you can establish that as your dependent variable to move forward and formulate a prediction about why that occurred, which is step 2. Now, I know I'm labouring this and relabouring it, but is everybody clear about what a dependent variable, that is to say, an observed natural phenomena when taking the steps of the scientific method, that is to say, natural science. Is anybody unclear about what a dependent variable is?
I'd say about millions of people around the world.
Are unclear? Well, everybody gets. If you went through a standard education, then you will have been taught this in school. And I normally used to say a Western world education, having talked with quite a few people from around the world about their education, specifically on OMI TV. No, this is true. It kind of doesn't matter what religion you are. Don't get me wrong, you can give me some exceptions to that rule, but it does seem to be the case that it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you will be taught of heliocentrism and science at a certain stage of your education. So most people are acutely aware to a degree because they were taught it. So if this rings familiar, it's because you were taught it, right? Independent variables and dependent variables. This case, step 1, observe natural phenomena. The other thing I qualified it with was that it's not synthetic. What do I mean by that? Well, that it's not man-made. Well, if you're asking yourself, why would we not put man-made things through the scientific method? Surely it's just as valid. You already know the cause of something if it's man-made. A man made it. Yeah? But for the fact that the man made it, it wouldn't be happening. So you already know the cause when it comes to man-made phenomena. Because a man made it happen. It's a man-made phenomena. Yeah? So it's only things that are occurring naturally in natural science. And it's only things that you actually observe to occur that can be put through this method as an observed phenomena, otherwise known as dependent variable. Okay, so that's step 1. I've asked twice if anybody's unclear. Going once, going twice. Step 2. Suppose what caused it? That's it. That's step 2. That's essentially all you need to formulate what is step 2. A scientific prediction, which goes by another name, a hypothesis. So at step 2, once you've established your dependent variable, that would be the phenomena you're studying. I've already gone through that. You then suppose what you think will cause that phenomena to occur. A suppositional causal influencer. Your best guess of what you think might, it's suppositional at this stage, might cause the effect. Now that is called an independent variable. It's what you, the researcher, will vary, that is to say manipulate, to see if it causes the effect. It must be real, right? There's no varying concepts in mathematics. Distance, for example, yeah? Location. Location's not a cause, okay? Things of that sort of nature. No, it must be something capable of varying and manipulating by you, the researcher, to induce the effect you're studying. So it must be real, yeah? And it must be your independent variable in the hypothesis, as strange as that may sound. And it must be capable of being varied by you, the researcher. Right, someone's off mute in Discord. Did someone want to add something? Feel free. Juice ST1. Want to add something? Juice? Hello, Juice? Juice. There he is. He's popped himself like mute. Good. Okay, so just to summarize, alongside the phenomena that you're studying, that is part of the hypothesis. It's called your dependent variable. You've then got what you think's going to cause it, your independent variable. Now, with those two things, you can form a logical suppositional statement, which is if my causal influencer, that's the thing that you're going to vary to see if it can cause the effect, then the effect. So it's an if and then statement. Cause, and effect. If my causal influencer, then the phenomena that occurred in nature will be induced. So it's if A, then B. That's a hypothesis, otherwise known as scientific prediction. It predicts the outcome of a presumed cause of a natural phenomena. Sounds complicated, but isn't. It's if I vary this, I give this thing over here a little wiggle, that thing over there that I saw happen in nature will happen. Because I varied this, that happened. That's all a hypothesis is. Now, let's just check everyone's clear first of all. Does everybody understand at this stage what an independent variable supposed cause is? Anybody unclear what it is? Please speak now. Okay, well in that case I'll summarize. So to be an independent variable, you must be real. That's the independent variable must be something that physically exists. It must be your independent variable in the hypothesis. That's to say the thing you vary much must actually be the thing you're predicting in the written down suppositional scientific prediction. That's actually the thing you will be varying. So it's the independent variable in the hypothesis, and it must be capable of variation and manipulation by you, the researcher. So it must be real, it must be the independent variable in the hypothesis, and it must be capable of variation by you, the researcher. Okay, so there's the summary. Again, with the summary, anybody unclear of what an independent variable is? Okay, so we're still on step 2, because hypothesis has one last element. It's called the zero difference result. What does that mean? It means you vary what you think will cause the effect, and nothing happens. You get zero difference. Your hope is that you vary the independent variable, and the dependent variable happens. Yeah? Now, if it doesn't, that validates, that's to say proves, the zero difference result prediction, which is alongside your prediction of an actual positive result. So where previously it's if A, then B, the zero difference result, otherwise known as the null hypothesis, is, in logical form, if A, not B. I vary A because I think it's going to make that thing I observed in nature happen. I'm varying it. Nothing's happened. Zero difference result. Tick. You confirmed that prediction. You proved that when you varied it, nothing happened. Zero difference. Validated hypothesis. So it's like having two hypotheses alongside each other. One is the mirror of the other. If A, then B, or if A, not B, in logical terms. Okay, so at that stage, is everybody clear what a null hypothesis is? Zero difference result.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okie dokie. Now, at this point, I'm going to take a break. We're not going to go on to step 3. We're going to still hold fire on why the most important aspect of this method is the construction of hypothesis yet to be validated. It's because this is where the end result, achieved by experiment, has its validity and offers empiricism. Why? Well, because those two described logical formats, if A then B, or if A not B, has an or between the two of them. It can only be one or other. A can't cause B and not cause B at the same time. You vary A, nothing happens. You can't say, I varied A, nothing happened, and it happened. You can't have the effect happening and not happening. So only one can and must be proven when you go to the next stage, which is experiment or hypothesis actualization, to give it a more technical term. So this step, the construction of a scientific prediction, hypothesis, is where you offer logically an empirical outcome to your prediction. It can only make it happen or not make it happen. And one will be proven at the end of the process. It can only yield proof at the end of the process. That's empirical evidence once actualized. So does everybody understand at this stage, hopefully I'm getting a little bit more complicated, why a hypothesis offers a potential empirical outcome if actualized?
Because of a law of non-contradiction, yes.
Yes, because of a law of non-contradiction violation, to assert that both A can cause B and not cause B at the same time would be to violate the law of non-contradiction. Correct. Anybody else not following along, I'm more than happy to go back a step or reiterate anything I've just gone through. Feel free to pipe up. Okie dokie. Then we get to the crown jewel of this method. Experiment. The actualization of your prediction of cause for an effect you observed in nature. So what are you going to do? Well, if you haven't figured it out already, I'll tell you in no uncertain terms. You vary what you think will cause the effect. That's it. You give your causal influencer a wiggle to see if it actually causes the effect or not. And whether it causes the effect or not has already been established in your hypothesis. A causes B, or A doesn't cause B. So we just need to see if, when varied, A does or does not cause B. Did you want to ask something, Neil?
So the researcher has to be able to vary and manipulate, right?
Yeah, that's back to step 2. So we're on step 3, actualization. But in step 2, what is an independent variable? Well, an independent variable is first and foremost your supposed cause in the prediction. It's the independent variable written down under the title hypothesis. It must be real, no imaginary things or hypothetical things. And it must be, to tally into that, capable of being varied by you, the researcher, to qualify as an independent variable in the hypothesis, Neil. Okay.
It's still a bit early in the morning for Americans. They'll catch up.
That's okay.
Well, there's a reason why I asked that. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so step 3, just to reiterate and re-summarize, you vary, that's you, the researcher, physically vary that which you hope will cause the effect and see if it causes the effect. Upon that variation of your independent variable, that has a title of experiment. That process of variation of a presumed cause is an experiment. The outcome of the experiment is either the elucidation of cause, that's to say, you induce the effect you studied, or you don't. If you don't, you prove your null hypothesis, and if you do cause the effect you studied by observing it at step 1, by varying a presumed cause, it's no longer a presumed cause. It's a empirically validated by experiment causal influencer. A successful experiment. So, is anybody unclear what varying and manipulating causal influencers, aka an experiment, is, even though I just summarized it in my question?
Yeah, there are people unclear because I'm getting time.
Getting what?
Time is an independent variable.
So is time, let's go through the, perfect. Is time capable of variation and manipulation by you, a researcher? Do you have a DeLorean?
Negative.
Is time real?
Time is a concept.
So not physical then? Conceptual then? That
Correct.
would be no. So therefore, it can't be the independent variable to answer the third question in the hypothesis, can it?
Nope.
Right. So perfect example, Neil. Exactly. So if you're following along, you can ask yourself these questions based on what I've just gone through. Okay. So ends an explanation with 3 steps: observe natural phenomena, formulate hypothesis, actualize hypothesis with experiment. That is the scientific method. Shout out to Vidali. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. The amount of people I've been arguing with that don't know the scientific method is wild. Observation, air pressure on Earth, hypothesis, gravity holds gas down, experiment, air pressure on Earth, circular reasoning. Yeah, exactly. Now, to the uninitiated, Vidali, thank you very much for the super chat. $20 too. Thank you very much. Really, really generous of you. Yeah, if you're in a position to understand it implicitly what the scientific method is, you can take that apart. Now, as time goes over the course of 2025, you will see us writing down some of these things that people claim and formulating it into an actual hypothesis on screen. Well, that would be to say if QE was here, we will. I won't be. I'm too lazy. I'll do it verbally. But if QE's around, we'll be asking him to get his pink pen out and we'll be writing down these things as people claim that they're an independent and dependent variable. And you mark my words, our opponents will flip-flop between claiming what their independent variable is and then repackaging it and restating it as their dependent variable. It will all occur, you mark my words. But knowing what the process is from day one means you can follow along with the fun, while our opponents who definitely don't know what science is, they think that making an observation in Antarctica is an experiment. It barely, before they, actually went down there, comported with step 1. It was an alleged observation of phenomena. Now that they've been down there by antipodal assumption, no, they travelled south. They've observed the sun, when travelling south on a flat plane, to be above their heads for 24 hours. I'll take that as read, then. That's a phenomena. Let's crack on and formulate a hypothesis. Coincidentally, I asked Will Duffy for his hypothesis immediately the moment he got in touch with me via a comment on a video. It's the only communication I've ever had with Will Duffy. Nevertheless, that was my first question. Understanding this process led me to ask Mr. Duffy, what's your hypothesis? Because that tells me everything I need to know. Now, I'm not going to lead Duffy to say dependent variable, 24-hour sun, circling. Okay? Fine. Dependent variable circling sun, you say you, in your hypothesis that you will be formulating for your experiment. What's your independent variable there, Duffy? Is it location? If location, 24-hour sun. Really? So I change my location and I get a 24-hour sun? I just moved 3 inches to the right. I'm in a different location. No 24-hour sun? Yeah, that fails on its ass. Shout out to Vidali. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. But yeah, you're getting it. You're getting the general gist. In the pre-show, it was talking about upward rising earthers that we don't necessarily want to chastise. We want them to figure this out for themselves based on step 1, observe natural phenomena. What are you observing? Now, for the sake of argument, somebody attempts to use a flat earth equivalence principle, then presumably they'll be dropping something or alluding to something traveling in a downward vector. Well, when they do that, to take them through their own nonsensical assertion that an upward rising earth is the causal influencer, oh, good luck varying that presupposition. You're going to vary and manipulate earth rising up. You're having a laugh. Meanwhile, what are we actually studying? Dependent variable dropping pen? That's synthetic. A man did it. Oh, what about a twig falling from a tree? All right. Leaf falls from tree. Yeah, you can science that. That is to say, figure out what caused a leaf to fall. Yeah, you can definitely science that. On you go. Is your independent variable Earth moving up? All right, let's see you vary that then. Yeah, that'll fail on its arse pretty quickly. Meanwhile, there's clouds. So this isn't a universal principle that needs explaining with the entirety of the surface of the ground moving up. There's clouds. Not everything's going down. But if you understand science, you can get to the nub of their assertion immediately and invalidate it based on natural science, a study of the physical and natural world. So when bullshitters are claiming there's an effect we need to study, what effect are we studying? Are we studying the effect of Earth moving up that we observe in nature? We don't observe Earth moving up in nature. By pure fiat, they assert this nonsense. But for it to be a phenomena, step one, what makes it a phenomena? First step, make sure you're observing it actually happening. Do we observe Earth moving up as a natural phenomena, ladies and gentlemen?
Absolutely not.
So this is outside the purview of science when studying the physical and natural world. It's a baseless assertion, but what will they then tell you? They might throw a bottle out of a car window or drop a pen. Synthetic. Correct? Hopefully you're all following along.
Correct. Yes, we're following. But what if they turn around and tell you, prove to me that you are stationary? Because that's what they do.
Non-positive claim. Proving not a roast chicken, Neil. Do I need to? Did I say we were? So I need to prove I'm not moving. No, non-positive claims I don't need to prove. That's a stupid thing to ask me to do. Is it because you need to flip the burden? This is a logical problem because it's using a fallacy. It's called the reversal of burden of proof. So because they have a positive claim in the form of a phenomena we cannot observe, we do not observe, they tell you to prove it isn't moving up. Oh, so that you can accept my baseless assertion that it is without proof, prove that we aren't doing the outrageous claim I haven't substantiated. A flipping of the burden of proof. Okay, so that's it. So you will be hearing this a lot over the next 12 months through 2025. This is absolutely back to basics. Why? Well, because if the clown shoes that have gone out and represented flat earthers out in Antarctica knew this, they'd have debunked it based on the fraud of it being called an experiment. Now, when, as a tangent, it was addressed because people were presumably pestering Will Duffy about his fraudulent use of this terminology, experiment. What, when studying phenomena? Oh, we definitely know the method then. We just went through it. Did Duffy elucidate the cause of an effect by varying and manipulating that which he supposed will cause the phenomena he was yet to observe when he was gathering up his cash for his fraud, which it absolutely without question is? No, he wasn't. And when push came to shove, he went, if you don't like the terminology, you can call it an expedition. What if we don't like you being a fraud? No, I'll just call you a fraud for it and show how it's not a scientific endeavour. It's actually fraud. Now, had Jaron, Whitsitt, or any of the other numbskulls that have engaged in this crap actually knew how science worked to prove empirically causes of effects, they might have actually offered this and put it on the table at some stage, rather than talking about how they won't respond to comments, how beautiful the flight is, and how they were wrong. About what? A map they already knew were wrong to begin with? Pathetic. They should have listened. Dave Weiss, Jaron, they've all had it. Witsit from Quantum Eraser. The problem is it interferes with their use of the same magic trick. Witsit, Jaron, Dave, they all claim science fraudulently, just like Will Duffy, because they're not adhering to this method to offer empirical suggestion when they give you their just so stories and say science alongside it, like with experiments. But if you know what that is, you can call out the fraudsters and spot the magic trick from bullshitters on your own side, in this case, Flat Earth. Now, my attempts to educate and elucidate this method, like I've done for the last half an hour with this audience, fell on deaf ears and led to people like Jaron calling me a scammer for attempting to educate him in this. What did he do in the end? He went down and validated a fraudulent experiment, seemingly lending credence to some fraud. That's what Jaron did. Now, my attempts to stop that from happening led to me being called a scammer. Let's make no mistakes about it. But all of the lemming idiots that believed Earth was flat, they weren't here listening to this for the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years, were they? So they're all going to bugger off back to the ball and relinquish their flat Earth belief based on fraudulent claim to be experiments that affirm the consequent. They utilise a different fallacy. We've gone through it many times. That's not the point of today. The point of today is to start the people who have made their way back to us on the journey that I had given to me by Quantum Eraser many years ago, and every single panel member had too. That's how we decapitate the globe believers, and have been doing for quite some time, because they use this magic trick non-stop. TFE, the E being experiment, is no exception. You, the audience, know science is empirical. You were taught it in school. So when somebody alludes to the idea that they've got it in the form of an experiment, your brain immediately releases a load of chemicals that says this is going to be proving something, when you're being duped by a fraud. But now you know. Pay attention, because it's only the first time. It took me 10 times of hearing that half an hour description of how science works. 10 times over I had to have it from QE before I got it. 10 times. So if you're first time hearing this and you're like, wow, this is all a bit complicated, I kept along till step 2, don't worry about it. Took me an eternity to get it. Like months of QE going over it and over it and over and over and over and over and over. Eventually I got it. So praise be to Quantum Eraser for taking the time with someone like myself, because the only reason I can do what I did over the last half an hour is because of him. So thank you, Quantum Eraser.
Didn't he
hail.
accuse you of being a scammer because of the scientific method? But he went down there to prove something?
Yeah. Jaron's a double-speaking clown, contradicting himself all the time. He says he doesn't believe in proof, but apparently there's, the cause and effect method being elucidated through experiment to prove he was wrong? No, he's just a double-speaking clown. Meanwhile, we know what science is, and so do you if you're an audience member. 145 of you currently watching. Very warm welcome to you all. Please share the show if you've not done so already. Smash that share button, stick it on your favourite platform. Bebo, MySpace, whatever it is you use. But we're in the politics server today. Also, hopefully one of my mods will stick a link to the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord server, which is where we are today. We've dropped in unannounced because they're friendlies. And we might do it with some other servers. We might toddle along to the land of misfit toys. We'll see. As they do know us, and we can just drop in. But also, as I said at the beginning of the show, if you happen to know of a server that you feel it would be beneficial for us to toddle along and tell them how Earth's measured flat, or something along those lines, or how the scientific method works, for instance, then just let us know. But yeah, hopefully one of the mods will drop a link to 24/7 Flat Earth Discord, which is where we are today. Not our usual server. Been so patient. There's so many people in here, and they've all just been listening to me talk about the scientific method. Thank you, guys. In 24/7.
Outstanding.
Yeah, you've been really patient and tolerant with me. Thank you so much for listening.
I
So that's
figured at least the baller would jump in and try to interject, but well done.
I can't believe I got through it all in half an hour. It's not a simple subject when you're summarising things 2 or 3 times and really labouring each stage. So yeah, I'm very pleased. We'll do it again and again and again and again. You will not hear. This won't be the first time you'll hear it, and it won't be the last.
Especially when you got the Americans waking up so late.
But we could have avoided the whole TFE debacle if people knew what science was. Then you wouldn't be concerning yourself with disproving maps that were disproved in 2016. You'd be concerning yourselves with, well, what measurements are we going to acquire down here?
That's the problem. It's always been the problem.
Is that the real Math
What the
Powerland in
world
chat? Hold on a
pushes
second, Neil. Sorry.
science.
We've got Math Powerland in chat. Is that a sock or the actual Math Powerland? Math Powerland's the guy who woke me up to Flat Earth. That is the real Math Powerland. Shout out to you. I don't know. It might be the real Math Powerland.
Is he the real or fake one with the pictures?
Yeah.
Pictures of
Yeah.
yeah.
Photo or painting, you mean?
Yeah, photo or painting. Exactly.
You've come a long way in those 10 years, Nathan.
Well, no. They tortured math mentally for years and years and years over this until it eventually broke and there was a second wave of people coming in who then also attacked Math Powerland immediately and called him a shill. And he did the same back to them, and so it continued into the third wave as the Feast of Nonsense took a hold. I had to go through this whole timeline with QE the other day because he'd come in a couple of years after. So he didn't know any of this. So he didn't know the backstory with Jera and Eric DeBay, Math Powerland. And I was filling him in on all of it. It was like a stroll down memory lane.
Yeah,
if it
people come in like somebody, Jeranism was supposedly on QEs yesterday. It wasn't Jaren.
Yeah, the Math Powerland video I watched, I couldn't even tell you which one it was because it came up on autoplay while I was doing other things. So presumably I'd have been watching something about psychopathy, which is what I was studying at the time. And then autoplay, Math Powerland comes on, and it's just, I'm doing whatever I'm doing, maybe stacking the dishwasher, just getting on with life. And I can hear him talking, but I'm not paying very much attention until I hear him talking about flat Earth. But he's talking about it in a way that I'd just never heard it phrased before. It was the tone of his voice. He wasn't saying it with disdain and ridicule. I'm like, what's this guy talking about? You know what I mean? And then I sort of paid attention for a few more seconds and heard him, make it explicitly clear at that point on whatever video I was watching, Earth's flat. I'm like, oh my God. And suddenly all the journeys I'd done on all the planes as a rapid flash before my eyes in an instant. And I went and woke my wife up, like shook her in bed. It was like 2 a.m. or something. Like, Paula, it's flat! I woke her up and she's like, whatever.
That's funny. My kids were telling me last night that you can have a horizon on a globe. It was a little frustrating, but I just didn't partake. I was like, look, you're grown now. You're going to make your own way. But what you're telling me is nonsense right now.
You can't have a horizon on the globe. They're right.
I told them, I said, what is the definition of horizon? How are you going to get a horizontal off of a ball? It's an impossibility. Even got a basketball and held it up. Show me how I'm going to get a horizon. He said, well, if you back away from it far enough, because Earth is so big, you will get a horizon.
In other words, Earth's
You
so
will
big,
not.
I can define a horizon as everything being parallel, perpendicular to 90 degrees in terms of what it affords you practically. You can describe all the flat Earth elements of a horizon, but then just justify it as Earth being so big that I can have a flat Earth horizon that's not capable of being used or acquired from a sphere ever. Yeah, they need a flat Earth for their horizon, and they do utilize horizons, Neil. That's correct.
It's weird because first he was talking about backing away, and then he was talking about going really close to something spherical and it'll seem flat. It's very weird.
Yeah, he's just wrapping his head around the whole facts of Earth being measured flat. but I can believe it's a really big ball so long as I take the first steps of measuring Earth flat. And then it's just because it's only a really big ball that we can measure Earth flat.
Surely the slope intercept formula would come in there, because then he's not arguing with you, he's arguing with
Yep.
the measurements of Earth. But I did look for it on QE's website. I can find it on Google, but not on QE's website, unfortunately.
Talking about the slope of dope, right?
Yeah, slope intercept
Yeah.
formula. I don't think it is the real math Powerland. Oh well. Thank you, Michael Khan, for screenshotting the person's details. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Zetetic Warrior fell for it yesterday and was talking to Jiren in chat. It wasn't Jiren. Hello.
That's fair enough. I do that all the time. I mistake people for who they say. You know, you don't assume that somebody's got such low self-esteem that they want to take on the namesake of somebody else. But that, to me, is so sad. But I always try and, you know, think the best of people. And why would you want to do that? But then again, you know,
Well,
I use my own name here, don't I? So do you.
No, you hold off a little bit. You see what they say. And the things that he was saying, I mean, it's just silly. You guys are just crybabies. Okay. Well, Jiren would say something like that. But you know, as he's in chat, that it's the same Jiren.
Cool. So yeah, that was it. I've kind of run out of steam in terms of talking about science now, and we've got at least 15 minutes left on this live show. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of a chat with the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord server, which is hopefully being shared by one of my moderators in the live stream chat on YouTube, so you can all join as well. It wasn't Jerem, but they are always watching, says Pablo. How do you mean they're always watching?
He's right. They're always watching because on Globebusters, maybe about a month ago, they were listening to our show, one of Ballbusters, and they were mocking how we all fight with each other. So they're watching. Hello, guys. You know what I mean, Nathan? The echo chamber, but always
No.
fighting.
You're right. You're right.
What? Go on, Adam. I don't know what you're talking about. Thank you for the super chat, Pablo.
It's like they're always on top of us. They're always checking on us because there's only one place to come, you know, for the best. So hi.
Yeah, did you see how quickly after TFE they latched on to Earth's measured flat? Did you see that? I was quite proud on the one hand, but it quickly faded away when you're like, oh, right, it's just a surface regurgitation because it's a nice punchline.
Well, we're going to see if Whitsitt comes with the good arguments, like he says. But remember, Whitsitt's good arguments is he thinks it's essential to prove that Earth is not spinning rather than to lay it down that Earth is measured flat. His words.
Okay, I don't care. Right, although we will endeavour to address some of the nonsense that permeates its way down to us. Okay, fine. I like to take my lead in terms of my attitude towards this stuff from a computer guy. So there's a channel I've mentioned him previously a few times called Frame Chasers. And this guy learned how to overclock computers and then started to charge for a overclocking service, and that's what he's built up doing. And he builds some fairly well-known like competitive gamers their computers, so they get a competitive edge because he's making this machine as fast as it can possibly be. Right, that's his bag. Now, while he's doing this, he's looking on internet like we do at his subject, equivalent to us looking at flat Earth, like we're talking about Whitsitt. And what does he see? He sees that there's an absolute shed ton of misinformation. Yeah? There's the mainstream, this is how you'll do it because we're paying you to do it and we're giving you the equipment to do it with, so do it the way we tell you way, which he found objectionable. And there's the, I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, but I'm still capable and will publish this garbage that's wrong on the internet. Now, between those two things, it's difficult for an individual to make their way through it. There's just too much nonsense. Now, that is for him, Frame Chasers, this computer guy. That's his feast of nonsense equivalent. You're following along with the comparison, right? So what does he do to solve this? Well, he says, I've just got to be concerned with the people around me, the people I have direct influence over, the people who are actually appealing to me to give them this information in a concise way that's useful. Now, in some instances, he's charging for that, but that's not necessarily applicable to his YouTube channel, where he's just telling people what he knows, talking about his experience in what he builds and how he overclocks it, and showing that he's actually done it. This is where it ties in today's show when I'm talking about scientific validity, which overclocking isn't. It's not science, but it's he's actually doing it, not just making it up and making up a result and publishing it without any validity. Here's what I did. Here's me doing it so you can see it functionally happening, and here's the result. You can see the difference between A and B when I compare them, right? Now, it's a very pragmatic way of presenting data in computing terms that isn't being adhered to by anybody else in his community, annoying him greatly, and he can do so little about it. Now, he's probably outgrown me now, but last time I made the example, he was about a similar size to me. He's probably bigger now. Maybe 30, 40, 50,000 subscribers, maybe getting on to 100, I don't know. But at the time, he was smaller than me when I was making this example previously. I'm like, I like that. You will go far. Just concern yourself with the people who are actually interested in you. Because the bigger names that are making the misinformation or following the mainstream or being paid to cuck by the manufacturers, well, they're not for his community. And if his community are going to those people for useless information, that's on them when he's telling them it's misinformation, it's wrong. Now, we're doing that. You got it? Go ahead.
I got it, Nathan, but don't you think that you may have been picked for a higher purpose? Everybody talks about how perspective was hijacked and this was hijacked. How about the word of God was hijacked? The creation story was hijacked. Well, you got all the churches thinking that we're living on a spinning water ball. So perhaps there's a higher purpose. It's great that you're looking after your community. 100% agree. But there's a greater purpose in this. The creation story. We're not on a spinning water ball. I was reading something to Brian yesterday, and he caught it. How the devil himself tells you that Earth is flat. Because he says, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. Well, there is no above on a ball.
Okay, but you're juxtaposing a biblical standard with an empirical standard on today's show. Well done, Neil.
Talking about a higher purpose. Let's not get carried away. We're people. They came up with the scientific method, but we all do. Most flat earthers come to an understanding that we're on a created earth. This is come out of nowhere.
Oh man, you've put me
This is creator.
Oh, God, you've now put me in a really awkward position. Thank you so much. So, I don't wish to condemn those who have faith or follow the biblical text or take it completely literally, right? And I'm not going to even express my own views on it at this particular point in time. The purpose of today is to give people a method of empiricism that they already knew. They were just taught it at a young age. And since that young age, that method is ignored and the terms and language is hijacked to suggest empiricism. And changing it onto a biblical context just kind of ruins my point today. Sorry, Neil, but it's just a fact. I'll agree with you. Yeah, I often feel blessed,
okay,
and I feel led. If you want to describe that as me taking the hand of Christ and allowing him to lead me where I'm best served, then you can take it that way. If you're a Christian, fine. If you're a Muslim, I won't even make the example, but you know where that's going, Neil. I don't want to offend you as a Christian if I use the same example for a Muslim. I'm not trying to antagonize you, is what I'm saying. But I could do it for anything. I could
Jesus, say... I said creator, okay, whatever you want. But in the story, any story you get, there is never a ball in outer space, ever.
No, and for my audience that are going to get torn a new one by the guy who just doesn't care about your religion or faith or your understanding, knowledge, your biblical scholarship, it doesn't matter. If you just have a good argument that shows beyond a doubt for sure that Earth is flat, and then you compare it to your Bible text that also affirms that for a fellow Christian in debate, that's a different story. But if you introduce it when I'm trying to describe empiricism, but for the fact that it can and is perfectly acceptable to piggy bank alongside that. But me saying that might get people's heckles up, Neil. So, okay.
You didn't say it. I said it. They can get their heckles up with me. But God chose you for a higher calling, Nathan. Too bad.
And it gets my admiration and thanks quite frequently, as is should be the case. Scraping by or otherwise, I do scrape by. And for that, I am eternally grateful, right? Life could be horrendous, and it's not. It's tolerable, financially speaking. Now, you're saying I want you to reach millions, and it's a loftier purpose for reaching the millions that could eventually be led to the word of God. Potentially, you might be right, Neil. And for me, I've got to have slightly less lofty ambitions. Which is to say, it'd be nice to just, as is always the case each month, make sure I'm not going into the red. And when I do, slightly concern myself with it and work a bit harder. You know, those sorts of things are what keeps my day-to-day going on the whole.
But isn't it great, though, always hanging on the edge, and then God always comes through in the form of a person sending you $100 or $200?
Yeah,
I'd rather
absolutely.
be waiting on the hands of God than be rich and not think about him.
Yeah, that's absolutely happened to me recently over the Christmas period. People sent me money, and I had enough to resolve an issue that's bugged me for 2 years. If you're a patron of mine, by the way, I just published a video about this. I don't know if I discussed it in the pre-show or at the beginning of this live show, but either way, there's little niggly things that I've wanted to sort out that I just couldn't justify spending, say, £100 on a new audio interface. The one I've got reacts to other electronic equipment, and by reacts I mean it goes in the middle of me saying something for no freaking reason. Very annoying. But it's just not, I can't justify exchanging it for something else when I'm always poor. Well, I was put in a position where I just had enough money to replace it, and I could justify it because my eldest daughter has gone, oh, I really want to do a podcast. So I've gone, okay, fine, I'll monitor everything you do, and you can publish it on a sub channel of mine on the kids section of YouTube. In other words, you're not getting your own channel, right? I think there's I'm pretty certain the age limit's still 13, so she can't and won't be until she's that age. But in the meantime, I'm like, yeah, I'll happily monitor what you're doing and publish stuff that seems appropriate. So when she boshed out her first crappy video with terrible audio, I'm like, okay, so there is actually now a justifiable reason to have a redundant audio interface. In other words, I'll give it to her and then buy a new one. And I have actually got enough surplus money to do that. And I feel blessed that I can actually do that. You know, so I have. I'm like, I'm going to do it. I did it today on eBay. You know, you press the buy it now button, you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm buying something cheap. Yay. It's completely for the show. And it will literally make no difference other than it will hopefully, fingers crossed, reduce or mitigate that distortion. Anyway, this is definitely not flat earth. I'm still live. I'm getting carried away with things I like. 150 people listening to me babbling on about audio interfaces. But if you are interested in such things, me and Eleanor, Eleanor and I, as the case should be, are discussing that very fact, i.e. me buying a cheap second-hand microphone and passing on what will become a redundant audio interface, hopefully in the next couple of days when my eBay purchase arrives. And indeed, her second-hand microphone arrives from the pawnbroker I purchased it from. So they're all getting posted to me, and that means there's going to be a few subtle changes to the show in technical terms. No one will notice. Hopefully no one will notice, unless it goes wrong, which hopefully it won't. So yeah, that's that. Check it out on Patreon if you are one of my members. It was made acutely aware to me that I do nothing with Patreon. I mean, I don't profess to give you anything on Patreon. It's made explicitly clear when you join that you get nothing. But I do actually post technical stuff on there, like when amps blow up and bulbs in projectors go and things of that sort of nature. So me buying a bit of acoustic treatment or buying a new preamp, in this case, or a new mic, is worthy of going on Patreon, as that's what I typically use it for. So although I bored you all now talking about it anyway, it's on Patreon if you did want to check it out if you are one of my patrons. Now, don't be so cheeky. How dare thee?
He's a funny guy.
What's that you say? Which preamp did you get? Oh, it's an SSL2 Plus. Thank you for asking. I'm glad that I got to actually say what I purchased. It's a preamp from about 4 years ago. It's not the Mark II that's modern. What's that you say? The mic that I bought for my daughter? Oh, it's an Audio-Technica AT2020. Very basic beginner's mic, but perfect for an 8-year-old.
Are
Thank you
there
for
any
asking.
ballers in the house?
The 2020 is a very good microphone. Thank you for asking, Neil. Yes, I chose it after very careful consideration.
Come on, when 24/7, there's got to be a few ballers that want to come out and play, eh?
I chose it based on if my daughter immediately gets bored of making videos of her playing games, then it might actually become useful to me. In other words, I wouldn't object to fiddling with it and trying it as a more closer proximity mic. At the moment, I use like I don't know what you call it. I think you call it a shotgun mic. It's a very long, thin mic that's very directional. So I can have it far away and pointing at my mouth because I don't like mics getting in my way. But for the sake of argument, if she does very quickly lose interest in Game and Awe, which is what she's called her little section of the YouTube channel, then yeah, I'll end up inheriting that mic.
What is it called again?
Game and Awe.
Very clever.
Maybe. So yeah, check it out. You can check out her horrendous video if you want to go onto the kids' YouTube bit. I doubt anybody here would be interested in Eleanor playing Roblox, though. But
You don't like it when Mike's
No, but I'll
getting
look
away,
on the
you
stock
said?
market. I'll look on the stock market in about 10 years. It could be a multi-million-dollar company. It's a good name.
Eleanor.
I like the name.
Well, she pondered it for a long time. So that was something I told her to do. I was like, come up with some ideas, ask other people, and after you've come up with the ideas, if people can remember the name, then that's probably the one to go with. So after she come up with several suggestions, that was what she picked. And I'm like, I'm here. I've spent years faffing around trying to be successful on YouTube, and I could hopefully point her in the right direction until she loses interest, which she may very well do quickly. I don't know.
Name is everything.
Again? The name is everything.
Yeah, because I worked for a guy. Now I do flooring. He named his company Florever. You know, Florever. And you wouldn't believe the amount of freaking people that called him just because of his name, Florever Carpets.
Florever Carpets. Very good. So yeah. Anyway, watch this space. If in 10 years from now, YouTuber sensation Eleanor Oakley is something you're well aware of, she owes it all to me. I take full credit. If she's a kid, she'll probably lose interest really quickly. But if she doesn't, at least she's, from this point forth, set up with something that I can use and might find a use for as a redundant mic. It solves a distortion problem that I've hated since I've had this Audion Evo 4. So I'm technically taking a backward step to a slightly older preamp that's got well reviewed and everybody trusts. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go with that then. So, it's good. I'm happy. Anyway, anybody...
Yeah, and someone's got to run Flat Earth Debate in 2050.
Exactly. I doubt it should be that interesting.
How could that be if he's not teaching his kids flat earth?
She's not that interested in the subject. It's not like she's coming in going, oh, by the way, I overheard you talking about elevation angles. Can you tell me what... No, she's not interested. I've introduced her to trig. That's about as close as she's got. But that was nothing to do with flight. It was maths. Just doing maths. But that's like how we then later in life, for our audience, like bring them back to their childhood when we're like, this is just basic maths, isn't it? We're just measuring Earth flat, right, with triangles. It's not complicated. Not that complicated. It is maths that you've got to learn, but we all learnt it. So, yeah.
Right, and that's what I mean about teaching them flat earth. Things like that. They will grab it. I don't know where the ice walls and all that other nonsense came from yesterday. That's not flat earth. That's anything but flat earth. We can teach them things where they can think on their own and they'll come to a realization.
If I'm ruthlessly honest, Eleanor's a bit of a fantasist, and she actually, like me, sees a lot of potential and beauty in the heliocentric fantasy. So Eleanor likes fantasizing about Eleanor world out in space. And I absolutely am, it is a delight listening to it. So this might piss people off. If this annoys you, right? Shame on you if this annoys you, right? When I hear my eldest daughter tell me about things like that, Planet Eleanor, right? It still warms my heart. Now, the fact that, like with Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny, she knows she's engaging in fantasy. But it doesn't matter. It's just a kid indulging in fantasy. Beautiful to behold. So there might be people out there. The reason I'm saying this is because we talked about flat earthers educating their children in conspiracy. And if you were watching yesterday, in between the crudity of that particular show, not from us, but from the people we were reviewing, you got the general gist that we disapproved of your average conspiratard talking about conspiracies with their kids. In this case, a 10-year-old. Mine's an 8-year-old. Right? Well, the same principle applies when it comes to my joy about a kid exercising their fantasy. I'm not going to stop her and go, you do realise Earth's not a ball and you can't be in space. No. It's like she's fantasizing about Eleanor land. So good for her. Why would I want to stop her? Anyway. Anything else? We're going to round out this live show shortly.
When she comes home breaking down Einstein's equations and things like that, then you're going to have some issues.
No, but I'm sure I have actually, in line with your standard education, educated about Newtonian gravity, Neil. Don't hate me because I've taught my kids stuff that other kids will know about. And I just don't want it to be a shock when some random kid of a similar age talks about something that they've got taught in school and my daughter hasn't. So she's suddenly in a position to scratch her head and then get the information from another 8-year-old at a tennis
No, you have to. That's it. You have to teach them that. My wife homeschools too. It's in the curriculum. You got to teach them.
No, it's not. I don't teach it because it's in the curriculum. That I'll concern myself with when they get to GCSE age. But for now, it's got sod all to do with the. I decide that what she gets taught, and my motivation for teaching her isn't because it's going to be potentially tested. I know where my daughters, plural, are educationally. So I'm never going to be. I need to check because I've got 30 kids and I need to know where each and every one of them are. My wife and I don't need that, if you know what I mean. But what I do know in life is that she's going to be confronted with some of this information in a general way. And so that she can essentially just get on with her day and ignore it rather than go, that's unfamiliar to me. Well, I was taught that blah, blah, blah. And suddenly she's getting mocked and ridiculed. Because like we stood against yesterday, I don't necessarily agree that you should teach kids conspiratorial feast of nonsense flat earth. Triangles, trig, yeah, definitely.
I agree, yeah. You don't want them in the dark on things. I agree 100%. But the homeschooling must be different in the UK than it is here. Because we have to pick, we have a certain set that we can pick from. Like my wife could choose her own curriculum, but they do have it laid out for you. You are going to be teaching them the solar system and things like that. You are going to be teaching them history, certain things that you have to teach them.
No, not that. It's not like that here. Here it's, are you teaching them? Are they being educated? And it doesn't actually matter what. So once a year, my wife does a report. Now, here, there's actually two standards. Both are acceptable. One is off the radar, where you have no association whatsoever with government. It means they don't help you. They won't give you any funding if you suddenly fell on hard times. They won't give you any medical help, like dentistry, things like that. No, you don't get that. If you don't want to engage with them, you don't engage with them at all. And then you're what some home-educated parents call being off the radar. Now, my wife and I realistically would have liked to have put our kids in a private school. I went to a private school. I thought it was fantastic, learning about logic and empiricism with a very small number of kids. But we couldn't afford to do that. I do YouTubing flat earth, so putting them in a private school definitely wasn't a possibility. But putting them in a limited number of paid classes and doing the rest ourselves as best as we see fit was a possibility if we took a humble life and accepted that we'd always be poor. But that's being on the radar. That is to say that the state are acutely aware of us and what we do with our kids, and they ask for one report a year to show that we are actually doing stuff with them. We don't just sit around all day doing nothing and letting them run amok, you know. And typically we get a fair degree of praise from our council, if you will. So they do report back on our report, if you will, and they're always delighted with the amount of stuff that we do with our kids. Mainly, probably because we put them in a lot of paid classes. But you know, that's here. I don't have to. My wife and I don't have to do anything so long as we can demonstrate that we are enriching our kids mentally in some capacity. But as long as you can demonstrate that, there's no you must adhere to the standard of curriculum that could put them on the GCSE path or anything like that. Not at all.
Yeah, I think it
there's
changed
so many
since
people-
Alabama. Alabama's different. New York, we had, my wife was just telling me, in Alabama, you're on your own. You're homeschooling your kids, you don't got to answer to nobody. But in New York, we had to answer. Like every 4 months, you had to send in a quarterly, the grades and stuff like that. But not here.
Well, it sounds similar, but just a bit more strict. So ours is annually, and it's half a day's work. I'll be honest. I don't do it. My wife does do it. And I do obviously go through it with her and discuss
Neither
it.
do I.
Well, I go through it with her, and I'm like, often, because, you know, while I don't necessarily want to be off the radar, as I've just described, there are certain things that I'm like, do you need to tell them that? Do they need to know that? How is that their business? You know, things like that. Not often, but occasionally. Or I'll
That's what I
say,
do.
why don't you tell them about this? Why don't you tell them about that? We've added this extra class. Do you remember when we trialed that class that we didn't end up taking? Well, that's still a class she did, for example. Oh, yeah, I remember her trying that. She didn't really like it, but yeah, I can put that in the report. Things like that.
I mentioned something about the Revolutionary War that my kids didn't know. Looked at my wife and said, "They don't know this? What the heck are you doing?"
Yeah, but we'd object if people were to speculate about the history hoax, as an example, right? Now, if I say history hoax, there's going to be certain people who are listening that go, I know exactly what he's talking about, and others that go, what? Doesn't matter. But if you were to sit down and teach that to your kids, I'd be objecting. I'd be like, why are you doing that? You're poisoning them. You're going to raise, what was the word we used earlier? Paranoid kid. You know, they'll become a paranoid adult. You're like, oh dear.
Yeah, I don't teach them about freaking, what do you call it, conspiracy.
Yeah, they'll be asking you about that anyway. They know they've got a conspiratard dad. You, not me.
That's funny because I didn't come to this subject through conspiracy.
I bet you did. I've heard that so many times.
No, my brother told me about it, and I found out. That's why I looked into other things after I was told about this.
Oh, your brother told you. Then your brother's a conspiratard.
Oh, yeah, still to this day, he tells me about ice walls and this and Admiral Byrd and yeah.
Yeah, okay, you are the exception to the rule. Typically speaking, like, third time I've mentioned it. I won't mention this again, regular viewers. About 2 weeks ago now, I keep mentioning it, Brian and I had a conversation. We've had plenty of subsequent conversations since, but this specific conversation was about us and our association and guilt in terms of the Feast of Nonsense. And we're chuckling along because both Brian and I are going, yeah, we're both conspiratards, aren't we? You know, while we're moaning and belittling those around us for being conspiratards and making us all look like idiots, we followed the same path to flat Earth. Math Power, we talked, what pure beautiful coincidence, Math Powerland sock in the chat, right? But for the fact that the algorithm said, oh, watching stuff about psychopathy, are you? Maybe you'll be interested in flat Earth. Previously been interested in subliminal messages, have you? Maybe a bit of flat Earth Math Powerland will be tasting nice for you today. Right? I got put on the conspiratorial Feast of Nonsense path like everybody else because I'm a conspiratard at heart. You're not. You're the exception, Neil. But your brother is.
Oh, no, well, I am now because, you know, I don't get into ice walls and things like that, but I do get into, I looked into the, you know, what happened in New York and the Pentagon.
Yeah, wouldn't you? No, that's not your fault. Once you're what you're saying is once you got here, you fell down the hill, your brother pushed you, but you suddenly saw like anti-flat earthers and flat earthers alike. The feast of
Yes.
nonsense. I went, ooh, that looks good. Bit of Admiral Byrd. Cool. Bit of ice. Bit of dome. Oh, the Bible says dome. Yum, 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 yum. Next thing you know, you're talking about talking about lizard people and 9/11.
Nathan, was Math Powerland, he was talking about NASA images once and manipulation of images, which is on par with subliminal messaging.
Yeah. I know why the algorithm suggested it on an autoplay. I mean, that's all been dispensed with now. The chances of someone getting my video just automatically playing for them are absolutely zero. But back in the day, yeah, YouTube recognised what algorithmically would appeal to me as a conspiratard and presented at Math Powerland. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, it's
Think
a
about
logical.
that. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
There you
I
go.
was saying, think about that. Think about that. They freaking conspired and got together and decided that they were going to put a stop to this flat Earth, right? Essentially, that's what they did, didn't they?
Well, yeah, they did it algorithmically, like I say. So if you can prevent anybody from just automatically stumbling across the subject, and instead, where I had Math Powerland play to me on autoplay, your regular Joe today gets Simon Dan played to him on the autoplay. Interested in something conspiratorial? Oh, you've just typed in FLA into the search engine. Quick, put Simon Dan up.
If you type conspiracy in, you'll get conspiracy cats.
Yeah, exactly. You get the anti-establishment position rather than, the anti-establishment position. People who oppose us.
That's very interesting why they would be so afraid of that they would have to preempt it like that. Because you were growing. I remember I was getting notifications for everything.
Recently, I typed in flat Earth in the search engine and changed the search filters to this week, and one of QE's live streams appeared. So he's in the algorithm. Yeah.
Yeah, if you do it on today, then it will shove whoever you're searching for to the bottom of the list. That was typically how I used to search. But yes, you're correct. If you search by the week, you can actually find your way to some of the stuff by putting a filter on. No one puts filters on. People are lazy. Anyway, I'm going to round out. Is there any last words before I ask people to stay tuned? A massive thank you to 24/7 Flat Earth Discord. Hopefully a link will whiz on by in the live stream chat if you are watching live. But if you're watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, another massive thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. As concise as it was, and repeated it definitely will be, it might be an idea if you did want to share this show with anybody who wants to know what the scientific method is so they don't fall into the trap of the TFE fallacy. So share this show far and wide, smash that share button, 2 clicks, put it on your favourite Bebo or MySpace or Facebook or wherever it is you use. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. Another massive thank you to 24/7 Discord and my G Plus panel for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.